one of my mottos in healthcare is how we look and feel is primarily based on how we live. And that's why I do a lot of lifestyle medicine.
Cue music. Places, everybody places. We're starting in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Autoimmune Hour, where we look at the rise of autoimmune disorders. I've brought together top experts that range from doctors, specialists, nutritionists, researchers, and even those recovering from autoimmune to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information about autoimmunity and how to live your life uninterrupted.
Thank you for joining us here on the Autoimmune Hour with Sharon Sayler. And we don't want you to worry about taking too many notes, so you can join the Autoimmune Hour's Courage Club, and we'll send you the transcripts and show notes from every episode. Sign up now at understandingautoimmune.com. Now, back to your host, Sharon Sayler.
Welcome, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour, Surviving to Thriving with Sharon Sayler. And I'm Sharon Sayler, and I'm thrilled to be with you here on another episode of the Autoimmune Hour. And I continue to learn so much. I am always profoundly grateful for every one of our guests that come and share with us. Here we explore all things. It doesn't have to be exactly autoimmune, but we find a way to make it work in our life. And tonight, I am absolutely thrilled to have just an expert in integrative medicine. He has over 40 years of experience, and he's the director of the Preventive Medical Center of Marin. His name is Dr. Elson Haas, and he is, as I said, a pioneer in the field of medicine, and he's considered one of the fathers of integrative medicine. He's the author of 11 books, and I've got several of them here. So we're going to be doing a lot of rabbit holes today because I've just been so thrilled with every one of his books that I've read that I've taken questions from several of them. So tonight we're going to have this kind of just exploratory look at medicine and how we as people thriving, even with our diagnosis, can continue to create more optimum and optimal health. So welcome, Dr. Haas. Thank you for being on the show.
Hi, Sharon, and hi, all you viewers.
Oh, this is so awesome. I'm so thrilled to have you here. Now, one of the things, I'm just going to jump right in because I want to have every second possible with you. And one of the things that I've been reading, I'm going to show it on the video if you're there. If not, I'm going to read the title too, Staying Healthy with New Medicine. And it's integrating the natural, Eastern, and Western approaches for optimal health. I love this book. This is a fantastic book. Now, opening parts of the book, I was nodding my head the absolute whole time. And I want to talk about it just briefly because I think it's important for people with chronic conditions. I don't like that term, but conditions that go on besides, just take 2 aspirin, you'll be fine in the morning. And you talk about the medical system. Tell us what's the difference between integrative medicine and how we can use it to help us when we have a long-term condition.
Well, there could be a long discussion of all the aspects of integrative medicine, but really the key is the question we ask when we don't feel well. A Western medicine approach and a regular medical doctor's approach is like, what do we call this, and what can I give you to make this go away? What can I take to make this go away is a Western model. You watch commercials, oh, this drug does that, this drug does this. An integrative question is, why is this present in my life? What's really generating this? Why is this condition there? What is needed for healing? And if we ask, I believe our bodies are very much like computers. If we ask the right questions to it, the information will start to surface. A lot of times illness is the struggle between our mind and our heart, or our conscious and subconscious, as Carl Jung wrote about. And, it was a really fascinating area for me. But we need to integrate. Wholeness, the idea of holistic medicine is looking at all aspects of our life and really integrating everything. And so that's really the basic idea.
And that is so powerful to me. That's one thing I found, that in my early part of my healing journey, that a lot of the Western approaches were excellent at specific parts of my condition, or very good at what I call acute care. But I really struggled to find a team that would see me as a whole person. Right. What are some tips you have for people if they don't have an integrative medical practitioner near them?
just what you say is create a team. Now, one of the challenges we have about new medicine, and the reason I integrate natural, Eastern, and Western, and that's where I started writing my Staying Healthy with the Seasons book in the 70s. I was studying, after I became a doctor, I said, I know very little about health and healing. And I started with myself. I did a 10-day juice cleanse, totally changed my body. My allergies of 20 years cleared up. I dropped weight. I felt vital. And I'm in my 20s, and I said, wow, I could feel like this. This is how I want to feel. So I realized I had to make some changes. One of my mottos in healthcare is how we look and feel is primarily based on how we live. There's other factors, but mostly, and that's why I do a lot of lifestyle medicine. Coming back to your question, finding a team is not always easy. Most of the doctors and practitioners who do a more integrative or alternative approach don't take insurance or Medicare. So people who are struggling with chronic conditions, they don't often have the extra money. That's why, I say from the beginning, because I became a doctor in the early 70s and I was kind of a rebel doc, I said, this Western medicine alone is not really helpful. And that's still my message about what new medicine is. It looks at conditions that Western medicine alone doesn't treat well. And that's all kinds of mood and energy and fatigue and insomnia and autoimmune issues. I mean, it's all very suppressive treatment, but even just digestive health and weight and beginning high blood pressure, where integrative medicine really helps people is to help change the beginnings of chronic disease and help, begin to reverse them.
Beautiful. One of my questions, and it's coming from the Ultimate Immunity book that you wrote, but I find it's going to be pertinent here, is as we're developing this team from the doctor's perspective, how can I, as a patient, get a communication going between all my different specialists? I find with autoimmune, you have your primary care, you've got an endocrinologist, a rheumatologist, maybe a gastroenterologist, and a lot of times it's difficult to get them to talk to each other.
Well, you have to realize it's time. I mean, even in my practice, I let people know. I mean, I began this program where people coming in would see several different practitioners, either the acupuncturist or psychotherapist, the nutritionist, and myself, and then we would collaborate. But part of the issue is that if you want your insurance to cover things, it has to be face-to-face visits. And a lot of times the additional time that it takes to communicate with doctors or for them to all get on the same page. And particularly if you have a Western doctor and then you have a chiro or acupuncturist or naturopath, they're not always used to talking to each other. So it's a little bit challenging there. That's why I encourage people to be their own primary doctor, and I support them in their healthcare, and we collaborate on what's the best choice for you. And then I can refer to another practitioner, and you would usually call them up and say, I'm referring, Sally to you or Joe, and I want you to, do this and this and this. And, they respond well to that way. But when you have a primary Western doctor who's wanting to be in charge of your health, and a lot of them like, taking charge, and they don't want you asking them, I read on the internet that if I took these probiotics, then it might help me XYZ. So we don't, and not every doctor's open to that. So that's why it's important to find, the right team to support you, in your progress, and to you as the patient to say, this person's really good at this. I want their input on that. This other person's good on this. And you have to be the integrator, basically.
Definitely. That was how I built my team.
Right. It's an integrative patient, which nobody's really talked about too much.
I think that's a critical part. Bravo. We've just had a moment of a mind expansion here. I think that's important. Now, from a doctor's perspective, I'm curious if this might have been insultive to some of my doctors, but oftentimes, if it was an important thing, I took the patient summary that I got at the end of some other visits. Like, let's say I had seen the rheumatologist, I would take that to the gastroenterologist so he didn't have to call the doctor up. Usually, it's a summary, it's like a page, and they could quickly skim that. Is that kind of thing helpful? Do doctors appreciate that, or is that like butting in?
I think so. When I have an organized patient come in, I have every test I do on people, and I do a fair amount of integrative testing and regular biochemistry and all that. I have 2 copies come in. I go over them with patient. I said, this is your copy. When a new patient comes into my clinic, they get a folder that has information on the clinic and our policies and procedure and all that. But this is also a file that any test they do goes in. I appreciate when a new patient comes in and they have a chronological folder with lab tests in it. And if they have if they were in the hospital for anything, or they have a summary from a doctor, or they've created their own summary, some people will give me, and you don't want it too long. You don't want it, 10 pages. You want a couple pages. When I was 16, I had mono. When I was 21, I broke my left arm. And you have that, because even my health history questionnaire that I wrote, 30 some years ago and put in Staying Healthy with the Seasons, which other practitioners have used, is a pretty full East-West natural medicine integrative questionnaire. So I can look at that in 5 or 10 minutes with a new patient. I have a good sense. How many cups of coffee are they doing? What are their habits? I look at people's, what I call snack habits, SNACC, sugar, nicotine, alcohol, caffeine, chemicals. I'm always coaching people to be in proper relationship with whatever you're doing, your medicines, your supplements, your foods. And, so if you're dependent on things, this is an area that I'm really exploring, and I think is really important for the country as a whole, is to look at, how do we use substances for controlling our mood and our energy level. And many people, even health-oriented people, are habituated to caffeine or sugar or alcohol or cannabis or things like that. And that's often a first level to look at with people in their health.
Yes, that's fascinating. One of the things that came as you said that was, as I was reading the book Ultimate Immunity the other day, one of the things that surprised me is, in all honesty, before the autoimmune condition, there were plenty of markers that this was coming, but they were all missed or suppressed, who knows what. But I thought I was living a healthy lifestyle until I read the book Ultimate Immunity. And what was interesting to me was all of these, what I call these little sneaker cheats. Where I could just have this cookie this time, and you don't realize how that adds up. And one of the questions I had about it, I get really confused now that I have in this condition of continuing to optimize my health, was when I first started, I was put on a really tight regime of like no dairy, no gluten, no sugars, no nightshades, and it just goes, no eggs. It just goes on and on. Right. And I'm curious, what's the best way for a person to know what they can eat? Well, and how do we discover when that changes? Is there a time when I'll be able to eat again?
Yeah, what you're talking about is doing a test, an experience. I speak around the country, and I speak to the public, and I also speak to doctors and practitioners. Doctors don't necessarily embrace when I say, everything we do in medicine is experimental, because it has to be experiential by the individual, by the patient. And what you're suggesting when you do an elimination diet like that, you're doing a test on your life and your body. You look at that, and that's one of the things I do. I do allergy testing in my clinic in Northern California. I do desensitization. I do a lot of elimination diets, I call it. One of my other books is called The False Fat Diet. It looks at all the different ways that we can react to food. There's true allergies, and then there's hypersensitivity, there's immune reaction, there's gut reactions, and all that. So people need to, consider doing that, and you only have to do it for a couple of weeks. That's why I do regular detox programs for my patients and clinic. I'm starting to do them online now on Zoom, like we are right now, and I have 20, 30 or more people supporting one another to say, let's do an elimination diet. We're going to get off caffeine, alcohol, sugar, wheat, dairy, anything else you're reactive to. I usually have people get away from fried foods, even red meats or various things like that. To say, okay, this is your test. Each person decides that test. And then they do it for a couple weeks, and then they say, okay, I feel this is better. I mean, I know if we did this, Sharon, on a national level, I would say 50% or more of people's common symptoms and complaints, headaches, digestive issues, skin rashes, things like that, would improve greatly, if not go away. I see this all the time in practice, that people get away from the things that they're overdoing in their body, or they can be tested to see that, they're having reactions. But really the best test, when you talk about food allergy, for example, the best test is the experiment that you do with yourself, where you eliminate a bunch of things that you can tune in, more subtly. You can get somebody to do kinesiology on you and read, say, okay, you shouldn't do almonds, you shouldn't do garlic. Sometimes they're not just the regular foods. They're very, common foods. Could be pineapple or brewer's yeast or things like that. So to me, that's you being your own best doctor. That's one of the courses I teach, how to be your own best doctor, which is like the Integrative Patient, getting your team together and all the things that we talked about so far. And that's, to me, really what's empowering for people. When I was a med student in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and working with people, I said, doctors are used to taking people's power and telling them what to do. And many people are still trained that way. They expect the doctor to make the decision for them. I was different. I was trying to empower people right from the get-go. You need to tune in what's going on. I saw easily that when people were stressed and they had a lot of what I call trauma and drama in their life, they had more problems. If we touch on autoimmunity for a second, we're trained, the first comment about that is it's self-attack. It's attack of self. Is that psycho-emotional, spiritual? Is that, a genetic factor? I mean, some people are set up where, we make antibodies. We have immune reactions to everything that we take in the environment and even things in our body. But part of the autoimmune issue is that we're misguided. Our immune system is misguided. And that's how I break it down in ultimate immunity, is that we can have hyperimmunity or hypoimmunity. When we're depleted and deficient, we don't fight off infections and viruses and bacteria as well. We get sick more easily. When we have hyperimmunity, that means things are overly surveillant and they're looking for trouble. We're getting autoimmune issues. We're getting allergies is a type of hyperimmunity, and so we're all, and that's the beauty of the integration of natural Eastern and Western, is this idea of too much or too little, really common in traditional Chinese medicine. So when we're autoimmune, or very allergic, we want to find ways to calm down, the immune system. And that's kind of a mind-body thing, as well as it's, getting rid of foods and other substances that might be setting off reactions. So there's, a lot of ways to approach it. And that's the simplicity of what I wrote about in Ultimate Immunity, is just understanding how the immune system works and what it does, and when it gets, too much or too little. And to me, that's a good way to balance. And if you see a, traditional Chinese medicine person, they're always looking at, there's a little too much, a little too much, a little too little here. Let's get everything flowing better. The whole idea of energy medicine and healing is that when things are flowing well through our body, in the meridians and in all of our channels, or in the lymphatic system, in the circulation system, we should feel healthy. Usually when we don't feel healthy is because things are jammed up, and that comes from stresses, it comes from climates. In traditional Chinese medicine, we talk about the internal harms or devils, which are the emotions, fear, worry, sadness, etc., and the external ones, which are extremes of weather, cold, heat, and dryness, wind, etc. Because, to me, it's a good, I've always looked at myself as a philosopher, physician. I looked at, really trying to understand health and healing. And that's really what, staying healthy with new medicine is about, is all the things I've learned about health and healing. I explore like pages of what is healing really, and looking at the whole integration of our body, and the strengths and weaknesses of each of natural Eastern and Western medicine. They all have good strengths and they all have weaknesses. Just like caffeine has certain benefits, but it also has some stresses and side effects. The alcohol, the same. All the drugs that we take, they have potential benefit. So that's always the dance of the doctor and patient, is like finding out. My approach is in healthcare is lifestyle first, natural therapies next, drugs last. So I'm always looking at, all right, what can this person do in terms of their, my 5 keys to staying healthy. I'm giving you a lot of information quickly here. Good nutrition, fitness, good sleep, managing stress, and a healthy attitude. And a lot of times I work on people's attitude first. And attitude, especially when you're chronically ill, it's hard to have a wholesome attitude. It's hard to say, this can get better. But I always want people to believe and see that see themselves healing. So beginning work in the 70s when I started studying about healing is we were doing conversations with the subconscious and guided imagery. People would just they would just take 10, 15 minutes several times a day and see whatever was going on with them in a healed state.
That's beautiful. We need to take a quick commercial break, but that's one of my favorite topics. And if you want to go back through some of the older podcasts, look for Dr. David Clark, So They Say There's Nothing Wrong, as well as Sarah Payton or even Brenda Walton's great ones where we talk about this idea of what part are your emotions, what part is your self-talk playing into your healing. And I want to get more into that with Dr. Haas when we get back from this quick commercial break.
Life Interrupted Radio will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com to learn more.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living. A chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Listen and imagine. It takes 5 seconds to send a text, and for those 5 seconds, you're driving blind. Life is worth more than a text. Stay alive. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Sharon, and of course you know me from here on the Autoimmune Hour. Maybe you don't know I'm also an author. My latest book is for kids. It's Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, a winner of a 5-star Reader's Favorite review. It's perfect for your early reader and a great bedtime story for your young adventurers. Check it out over at pinkychenille.com. That's PinkyChenille.com. See you there. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I am just having an awesome time here with Dr. Elson Haas. He's the founder and director of Preventive Medicine Center of Marin, and he's been a practitioner of integrative medicine for over 40 years. Now, we've been hearing all about how integrative medicine works. It's integrative. It's like bringing all different parts of you and medicine and healing, everything together into one possibility. And I am just having such fun discovering this. One of the things I wanted to ask about, Dr. Haas, was this idea of when we are bringing in Eastern, Western. I want to go back to it because I've tripped up over this a couple of times in my healing process. When we bring in Eastern philosophy and Western and all of these together, have you found graceful ways to approach different doctors that might be a little biased, shall I say?
Well, you know, one of the challenges I have is that people come to see me because often other doctors, I have a couple of pages in a new medicine book on what I call the health illness continuum. Most doctors are oriented to diagnosing problems, having people who are in a certain state of health, and they go up kind of the dark side where they start to get some symptoms and diseases, and they start to get medicines, and they have side effects, and they get another medicine, and then they have some chronic disease, and they start moving up to this degenerative disease. Whereas I'm always looking at, okay, how do I move people up what I call the light side, which is, you know, improving energy, vitality, just feeling an overall health and well-being. And that's, that's mind, body, emotions, and all those different areas. We get to enlightenment from full awareness or from dying. So that we end up, that's kind of maybe a more Buddhist concept, but
let's travel up the enlightenment while we're still here.
So as you start to feel better, and I realize how I'm different than many Western doctors is I'm always thinking, how does this person improve their health? Many people come to see me because they're already on several medicines. They don't like how they feel. I tell doctors a lot, when people are on 3 medicines, they don't usually feel vital. They don't usually feel good. They have some issues. Not everyone, but some people are managed well with medicines, and you need to. The key is you got to get results. And where an integrative approach, like for blood pressure or early diabetes, has to do with sometimes weight loss, natural therapies, lowering caffeine and things that maybe raise blood pressure, and helping people really heal those conditions. So I'm looking at, how do I increase this person's health, vitality, lessen meds, and get them up to their creative selves where they feel like, I have energy, I can love the world, I can do some good things in my life. And that's a lot of times what happens when people don't feel well, is they just don't have that extra juice. They don't have that energy in their health bank account, I call it, to really go out and spend it, and because they have to recharge. And a lot of times it's sleep. I do a lot of work with people and my patients. I mean, the most common symptoms that most family doctors see are fatigue and insomnia. And people are trying to manage that with substances. They really need to work on good sleep. When you sleep well, you usually wake up, more refreshed and with more energy. And that's, often place, so people, if they tune into it, they say, what's stealing my energy? What's interfering with my real vital health? And that's, when I'm speaking to groups, or when I'm working with an individual, it's always, that same question. What's out of balance here? What's needed for healing?
I love that. And I wanted to touch on this topic of balance. In my healing journey, I found that just tackling one issue at a time to balance, that was much easier than when I first started. I was trying to fix it all at once. Have you found that helpful, or is that kind of backwards? I just found that sometimes it was overwhelming trying to fix it all at once.
Right. Well, I think you basically correct your way of being, your way of living, your thinking, and see what it helps. So the idea of fixing things one at a time is still a little bit of a Western idea, where you say, oh, I have a lot of gastric bloating, or I have aches and pains in my body. That's a result. That's the end result of how you're living your life and how you're being. And so that's treating from outside in. I believe that we heal and treat from inside out. One of the concepts I have in Ultimate Immunity and my Detox Diet book, and a whole chart I have, a 1-page chart that's a whole chapter on understanding the causes of disease. When we really want to heal, we go into the cell. Around on the circle, I have all the diseases: allergies, headaches, cardiovascular issues, high blood pressure, etc. And most doctors take that outside circle, even autoimmune issues, and treat it inside, and treat it from the outside. In the core of that is the cell, in the center of what generates all imbalances and even inflammation, immune dysfunction, infection, etc. Are secondary. When you eat, so what your cells need is getting all the nutrients in, all the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, and the phytonutrients that are the bioflavonoids and carotenoids that are in, all the natural foods. When we get all those nutrients to our cells, that means good digestion and assimilation too. We have the potential to function optimally in our body, because we have thousands of different kinds of cells. They do thousands of functions every day, every moment. The other side of that is we need to watch the toxins, metals, chemicals that get into our air, food, and water, or that we put on our body, or that we color our hair, or whatever we're doing. That can interfere with enzymes and cell function. So when we talked about just a national detox, it means getting all the good foods in, and then eliminating some of the toxins. Many things get better when we do that. We start to heal from inside out. I see a lot of dermatologic issues. You can go to the fanciest dermatology expert, and they're still going to be putting cortisone cream on your skin to control it from outside in. When I work with people on detox programs, food allergy changes, the skin heals because the tissues become healthier.
Yes, and the skin is the largest organ, and I'm always fascinated how the skin is so often overlooked, how it can also help get rid of the toxins too.
Right.
I mean,
kidneys, our lungs, it breathes for us. It's our connection to the world.
Oh, wow. Fascinating. This is awesome. I want to touch briefly on a little bit, and though you have in the Ultimate Autoimmunity, I want to go back to touch briefly on sleep. Do you have several tips for people that they can say, okay, I agree, except, doctor, my body's in pain. It's hard to go to sleep. It's not just I've meditated, but, whatever they're saying, but I wake up in pain or things like that.
Pain, when people do more alkalinizing diet, one of the things I've written about way back from 1981, my Seasons book, came out. It's still in print. It's still a somewhat popular book. It's many people's first book that they really got engaged in.
Yeah, I have the book right here. Let me show the picture of it for the video people.
Okay, cool. So, sleep is a little oriented toward, can you really let go and rest your body? Talking about acid alkaline diets. And when we eat a lot more vegetables, I think people need to really think about focusing on fresh vegetables as their primary, maybe 50 or 60% of their diet. Add protein to it, add some oil-containing foods, avocados, nuts, and seeds, and then figure out how much carbs they need based on whether they're trying to drop weight or gain weight and all that. So when we alkalinize the body, we start to reduce this inflammatory, acidic, degenerative state. And we're coming back to the cell again, too. And so that's a beginning step, because we can reduce pain a lot. And when I do my detox group, people come back, God, I'm not stiff when I wake up in the morning. I'm looser. When I'm doing yoga, I'm able to stretch more. It's really cool to see that. But for sleep hygiene is the first thing. Any sleep specialist, it's the great, fastest rising specialty is sleep medicine. And I send a lot of patients who don't sleep well or snore, or they wake their wife up because they're snoring all the time. It really affects people's relationships a lot, but it also affects people's health. So we want to reduce electromagnetics. When I cleared out I took my TV out of my bedroom, I took my digital clock out, I got a new organic mattress, organic sheets. I started sleeping better because, a lot of people's electromagnetic. So sleep hygiene has to do with what you're doing before you go to sleep, the substances you're taking in, relaxing, watching your electromagnetic exposure. And then those are a bit of lifestyle aspects. And then there's natural therapies. For someone who has pain going to bed, there's a lot of products that have natural salicylates from white willow bark, or magnesium salicylate has an effect. Valerian, I have a couple products in my office that I use that are anti-inflammatory for pain and relaxation. They have valerian in them. They have other sleep herbs. You can do different sleep herbs. You can also use 5-HTP or tryptophan. Those are amino acids that are the precursor of serotonin. So a lot of people who have pain or are depressed or don't sleep well are low in serotonin. Your integrative doctor could measure your urine or your saliva and look for your neurotransmitters. So GABA is another one. And a popular medicine for people with pain now is Neurontin or gabapentin, which is a variation of GABA aminobutyric acid, which is a natural calmer for the brain. So I'm not a great sleeper. I'll go to sleep. I'm a good sleeper for the first 3 or 4 or 5 hours, and then I'll be up and, my brain's, when I started doing cleansing and detox, I didn't need as much sleep. I started sleeping an hour or two less, so I was able to have more time to write books, because a lot of times I wrote in the morning before my kids and family were up. So that's, so that was cool, because, I have that. I know you don't have a copy of my Staying Healthy with Nutrition, but it's like a 1,250-page book that people said, when did you have time to write that? I said between 5 and 8 in the morning when the rest of the family was sleeping and before I went to work and all that. And I did that for years. And then, on nights sometimes and on the weekends. So I think the healthier diet for me and the lack of substances allowed me to sleep better and less. So I could get the same recharging because I have pretty good energy all day and I don't do caffeine, alcohol. I'm 71. I don't do substances. I don't do drugs. I have a pretty healthy lifestyle. I love food. So I always have to detox a little bit because, I need to always lighten up a little bit. Because, your body feels better when it's a little bit lighter for most people. But we need to be nourished. So coming back to sleep, and sometimes people even need a little bit of medicine. So they could use, I don't like people to get on the benzos, Xanax and Ativan and Valium, things like that on a regular basis because they're hard to get off. Many people use Ambien and other medicines, or Sonata is a shorter acting one. If you can do that on occasion and still work with your sleep, from a more lifestyle and natural medicine point of view, and occasionally, like when you travel or, or you just like, all right, I'm wired up tonight, I'm not falling asleep, you use it on occasion. So, I'm a believer, I'm still a family doctor and I write prescriptions every day that I practice, and so, but it's always about, have the right intention with the medicine, have it be useful, effective. A lot of the medicines are that way.
Oh, that's so true. Have the right intention with our medicines. That's a keeper quote, guys. That's a real keeper quote.
Well, I have another layer of that too, if you want.
Well, we need to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll find that other layer because I love that. I love that. We'll be right back.
Life Interrupted Radio will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com to learn more.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Change and growth are part of natural life and also part of your spiritual life. Everyone needs support and guidance, especially during life passages. Upgrade yourself with the OMTimes Experts program. With OMTimes Experts, you have access to the best intuitive coaches, spiritual teachers, counselors, astrologists, and oracles. Our team was carefully selected so you can trust. Find out more at experts.omtimes.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for inspired conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Research shows we apologize up to 10 times a day, and most of the time, we say sorry as a response to someone else's mistake. What if we thanked people instead of all that unnecessary apologizing? So instead of saying, sorry, I'm rambling, you say, thank you for listening. Join us at ProjectForgive.com, a free, non-religious resource on global forgiveness.
Hi, this is Sharon, and of course you know me from here on the Autoimmune Hour. Maybe you don't know I'm also an author. My latest book is for kids. It's Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, a winner of a 5-star Reader's Favorite review. It's perfect for your early reader and a great bedtime story for your young adventurers. Check it out over at pinkychenille.com. That's PinkyChenille.com. See you there. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sayler from SharonSayler.com, and we're here with Dr. Elson Haas, MD, and he's the founder and director of the Preventive Medical Center of Marin, and he's one of the leading integrative medical centers in the country, a pioneer in the field of medicine, and considered one of the fathers of integrative medicine. And we're here discussing just 3 of his 11 books, which is amazing. But when we had to take a quick commercial break, we were talking about intention, and I want to circle back to that, and because I think intention, not just in what we're putting into our bodies, I'll say physically, but intention mentally, emotionally, spiritually are critically important. So let's just cover a few bases around this idea of intention.
Well, when I first started practicing, I felt I was responsible. I was already kind of somewhat alternative minded, because when I worked in clinics it was 45 years ago when I started practicing, people wanted a medicine, and a lot of times they just had stresses in their life, or I could tell that they had issues that weren't being addressed. And if I didn't give them a drug, so I started to be responsible and explain all the potential side effects, and if you take this drug, blah, blah, blah. And I realized as I started to get into imagery work and realizing the power of the mind, at the same time, I said, so in the last 20 or 30 years, when I decide to prescribe a medicine, so it might be for someone who's had a persistent bronchitis and they have tried 8 different herbal things and they're still coughing and they have, green mucus. And I said, okay, I think you need an antibiotic so we can knock down the infection that you have, so you can use that same energy you're fighting that infection with to heal your body. Or I give them something to help them sleep, or I give them. So now when I do that, my intention is saying, yes, every medicine has potential side effects, but they're very minimal. The likelihood that you're going to have a side effect is very low. Really, what I want to see is that this medicine is going to go knock out the bacteria so you can energies to heal, or it's going to help you go to sleep. You're going to wake up. So I plant seeds that are visual imagery of the potential benefit, and I want them. An example is a few years ago, my son was working over in Ghana, Africa, and I was going to go over and start medical brigades with him. So I hadn't had any immunizations in a long, long time. So I needed a yellow fever shot to go. So I went to this infectious disease doc friend of mine who also had studied with one of my associates, Marty Ross, who's a guided imagery expert and that teaches hypnotherapy and has written books himself. Anyway, so she had studied with him, so I knew that. So I went and had hepatitis A and B, I had a typhoid, and I had a couple different things. And I didn't have a good attitude about it. I said, I don't really want to do this. And I felt like crap for 3 days afterwards. I had my energy, I felt like, low grade, whatever. So I said, all right, I knew I did it to myself, So the next time I had a few weeks later, I was going to go in. I said, I want to do 15 minutes of a guided imagery, a session with you before you give me my yellow fever and the couple other ones I needed. So I had my little guy, sun boy was on my shoulder, little yellow sunshine, and I said, okay, and I was just like, okay, these shots are going to go in. They're going to create an immune response that I need to protect me from the diseases, and my body's going to feel fine. Anyways, I had a few shots then, and the yellow fever is a potentially reactive one. Anyway, the next few days after that, I felt great. I felt even a little better than normal. So I realized that that's a lot of what we do when we're going to do any kind of treatment. Embrace it. Bernie Siegel years ago wrote Love, Medicine, and Miracles and other books. And he saw when he had people draw pictures of, he was a cancer surgeon then, people, if they had a negative imagery about a particular kind of treatment, he saw that would create more problems. So if they saw chemotherapy as, white knights riding around their body, killing the cancer cells and taking them away, they would usually have a more benefit. So I think there's something to what we do with ourselves and our own mind. I work a lot with people since attitude is one of my 5 keys to staying healthy, I want people attitude to be, this is the only body I have. I'm going to treat it with love. I'm going to take care of it. Now, that's our biggest responsibility in life, besides for our mom or dad and we have kids to take care of, taking care of this body that we're given. And most people don't take care of it that well. They may start a little bit after it gets trash and they have problems, but that's a gift when you learn early on that you're responsible for the health of that body, and how you live your life is going to create that outcome.
I love that. That's so true. I'm thinking with my grandchildren now, we've started early on teaching them the respect of the body. And because for so long, I actually, thinking back to my early years where I did give over a lot of power to other medical professionals and think, okay, I'm not feeling well, fix me. And that was one of the radical approaches that I took to change to become a thriver, even regardless of my diagnosis. Was like, I don't care about the diagnosis. I'm doing good. That's all that matters at this point. So you touched on the 5 keys. We got attitude in there. Before we run out of time, I want to at least touch on the other 4. What are the other 4?
All right, the other 4 is good nutrition. And my message about that is eat wholesome food, avoid junk and chemicals. Good fitness, which is a balanced program, includes stretching for flexibility, weight work for muscle tone and strength, and some cardio for endurance and detoxifying your body. The third is getting proper sleep. We talked about that already. It's crucial for health and well-being. Fourth is really important, learning how to deal with stress, learning how to let go of things, learning how. One of my favorite parts of staying healthy in new medicine is about stress in relationships. I have the section called The Art and Practice for Peacefully Not Getting Along. And this has to do with learning how to, what I call fair fight, how to disagree with your partner or your kids or whatever, and just do it with respect, doing with ability to listen and respond. What I work in my practice with a lot of the ladies I work with, it says, when you go into reaction, that's a defense. There's a big difference between reaction and response. Response means we actually received what you said, we let it percolate, and then we come back with a response. It's not a defense.
I want to put that up there as that's another quotable, guys. I love that one too. We'll all have to reflect back on our transcript, keep these.
So the difference between reaction and response. And that's why if you have a disagreement with your loved one, you just really have to be there and not let each person talk. And then you say, I heard you say that you don't really like it when I throw my wet towel on the bathroom floor, So, okay, and I'm going to do better to not do that. Or, when I throw my dishes in and I don't put them in the water to let them soak a little bit. Whatever it might be, you just learn that you can do things respectively. And it's like a whole chapter I have in new medicine is called the doctor-patient relationship, and all the factors that contribute to a healthy relationship where, you want to see practitioners that are like-minded, that have some level of respect. I mean, I pretty much run my practice on time. I don't book like many doctors, 6 people all at 1 o'clock and they're all waiting an hour or 2, or some of them wait. I keep people that have a specific time. I try and stay on time, which is a little bit limiting because being an integrative doc that takes insurance and Medicare, I don't charge people by the hour. I can't take an hour or 2 and say, okay, and now that's $1,000, please. A lot of, the alternative doctors are doing, they're not plugged into the system. And it takes a lot of work to run a medical center and do that. And that's one of the things I'm really proudest of. When I became a doctor, I said, I want to be a people's doctor. I want to get the message I have about medicine and health to everyday people that are working down the street, that have insurance, that don't have a lot of extra money to pay for fancier care. So that's really part of it. And my barefoot doctor idea is always, goes back to the philosopher physician. The traditional Chinese medicine is you are successful when you keep people healthy, when you help them stay healthy themselves. That's one of my motto has always been stay healthy, staying healthy with nutrition, staying healthy with the season, staying healthy with new medicine. It's about really attaining that level of health and vitality and figuring out what does it take for me to maintain that. Attain and maintain is really, what you do. And that's all about how do I improve my health? And that's the question to all your listeners right now is, look at yourself, tune in. What are several things you could do? Maybe you're overdoing or things that you could add in that might help you feel better. Do you need to save, $500 to go to like an acupuncturist you heard about to get a few treatments? You can find, and a lot of places have affordable like community clinics that offer sliding scale for acupuncture or naturopaths or things like that. So, look around your area to see who you can get on your team that you can make work.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I want to circle back around on one thing we were talking about, this relationships and respect in relationships. And one of the things I learned early on was to always give people the benefit of the doubt before I respond.
Yeah.
And I've learned that even in medicine, when I'm talking to a doctor, my first thought sometimes this sort of righteous, like, how dare he not remember me? I've been here 10 times. How dare I have to kind of, and then I go, no, give him the benefit of the doubt. He sees hundreds of people, he sees a lot of people. Why would I expect this poor person
I think that the doctor should remember you, especially if he's seen you several times, but he might not remember that, your husband was in an accident, 3 years
right.
ago.
Sorry. Yes, I was a little too general.
Little details like that. But really, to me, the key is just to really embrace the relationship. And, most of my patients are kind of friends. One of my mottos in healthcare, the reason I still practice after all these years, because a lot of my colleagues have retired, is because I like it. And I said, my requirement is that I make healthcare fun and educational. So if you're not learning from your experience in my office, and it's not just me, I have a lot of other practitioners that really do good work as well. It needs to be fun and educational, and that's really, to me, the key.
I love that. Yeah, it is hard to switch medical professionals. I'm actually sort of in a period of grieving myself. Mine just retired, and I'm trying to find the same level of relationship that we had, but it's a process.
It takes time. It takes a few visits to a new doctor to get to know him. My first visit, I let people know. I go over their life story, their questionnaire. I look at previous lab tests if they have it, or I decide let's do these tests. I said, but it's going to take a few times for us to get to know each other. This first visit is for you to get to know me a little bit, for me to get to know you, and usually at the end, before the end of our session, I said, any questions you have about me or the clinic, or what can I do? Another important question to a new patient is, what are your goals in coming to see me? What would you like to achieve? Sometimes I say, I want to reduce these medicines. I don't like the antidepressant anymore. I want to get off my sleeping pills. Okay, well, that'll take work. If somebody comes in and they want to just have their headaches reduced or their allergies a little better, that might be simpler than I want to lose 100 pounds and be off my 6 medicines a month. That may take, a fair amount of work. So it's a good idea. I've done lecturing to graduating nutrition students and naturopaths and practitioners. But part about being a good practitioner is to tune in to people right where they are and help them take their next steps. I have a live patient. I could give them a whole lofty idea of here's a lifestyle for you to live, but they can't necessarily do that. It's too much. If it's too much for them, they won't do any of it. So you give people a couple steps to do. And that's the same as people you mentioned earlier about, you can't give your doctor everything you want at once. You got to say, all right, let's work on these 2 things. Then the next level will come in. We'll work a little bit more on your sleep. We'll work a little bit more on your digestion. We'll do these tests at the second level. Because I have to be, as an insurance-based doc, I have to be responsible. I can't just do everything. And most of the things can be covered, but a lot of, some things aren't. Some things this insurance just doesn't pay for. It's too innovative, or they call it experimental. But, most of the stuff I do is pretty basic now.
Well, with autoimmunity, I just look at it as a big tangled ball of yarn, and you got to start somewhere. But oftentimes you don't see that extra knot in that ball of yarn until you maybe uncut, get rid of that, or diminish that other thing that you were just working on. So oftentimes I feel like we're untangling a great big ball of yarn. We're just about out of time. This has been awesome. Tell everyone about you, how they can find your books, and share with them.
There's part of the healing autoimmunity is tuning into your body, maybe a little bit of detox, elimination diets, and all that I write about in Ultimate Immunity. Basically, my main website is elsonhaasmd.com, ELSONHAASMD.com. My clinic is pmcmarin.com, Preventive Medical Center of Marin. I'm doing regular online detox programs where people, just can be supportive and have interactive with other people in the groups. So they're basically group detox. A lot of people, I say when I'm working with patients, if I give them just across my desk to say, okay, I want you to do this program, but it's hard for them. Maybe half of them might do it or some part of it. But when people join a group, they really have a great support system and they're able to follow through and do it. That's one of my things. And, my program that I'm really proud of that I just put together, which is a self-guided online detox program called Regain Your Natural Energy, really is a hands-on program that you can do in your own timing. That's what I really want people is to start feeling the true life force of life itself and not be dependent on caffeine or sugar for energy or alcohol or sedatives for sleep, and really come back so that we have, a level of health and vitality that is potential for all of us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Haas, for being a guest on Autoimmune Hour tonight. And everyone, as you've heard, that it is possible thriving and then moving into optimal, and regardless of our diagnosis. I really appreciate you taking the time. And everyone, be sure and go over to understandingautoimmune.com, pick up the transcript for sure, because we had lots of great tips in there. It was just juicy, packed with so much great information that I know the transcript's going to become just so valuable to you. And join us on Facebook, share your comments and your thoughts for sure. As always, join me next week and have a great adventure. Whatever happens this week for you, enjoy.
The information provided on lifeinterruptedradio.com is for educational purposes only. What you hear, read, and see on Life Interrupted Radio is based on experience only. The information presented here should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on Life Interrupted Radio. You've been listening to Life Interrupted Radio. To learn more, listen to other shows, and gain free resources that can help empower your life, be sure to stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com.